All right, so today we're going to be talking about the getting started with Horizon Cloud on Microsoft Azure. How many people in here today are already using Horizon Cloud on Azure? We got one person in the back. How about Horizon Enterprise or Horizon 8? All right. How about Windows Virtual Desktop? A couple more, okay. So I just like to ask the questions because I like to know who I'm speaking to. If I'm speaking to an audience full of Windows Virtual Desktop admin, it's a little bit of a different presentation than if I'm speaking to Horizon 8 admins. So I know what bases to cover, and if there's any questions, feel free to raise a hand. We'll bring a mic over so everyone can hear, and then we'll keep on going. But just kind of a quick agenda. We're not really going to talk too much up front. It's just quick introductions. We're going to talk a little bit about how the lab's constructed as far as what is deployed on Horizon, or what is deployed on Azure for the Horizon Cloud Service. Understanding the solutions, the different pieces that fit together, what's managed as a service, and what's expected from the administrators. And then of course we've got the Q&A at the end, after a guided workshop.
Sure. So my name is John Kramer. I've been with VMware 11 years as of this month. I started out as a PSO consultant doing EUC delivery of Horizon, and then got tired of all that travel after 2 years, so moved over to the technical account manager role, was helping some hospital systems out in St. Louis for a little while, and then I got an opportunity to join what we're calling the Horizon SME team, and now I'm a staff solution engineer focusing on EUC on that team. And kind of our role, my team's role is to kind of help customers if you're having any kind of adoption issue, any kind of blockers getting Horizon going, we can jump in there and kind of help you get through that.
So, as advertised, my name's Colby Mooney. I've been at VMware for, I think I'm coming up on 7 years now. It's easy to lose track of time whenever you're having fun, but I've had a few different roles. I came over to VMware, I was a UI developer, and I realized fairly quickly that I spent a lot of time behind a monitor and I wanted a little bit more social interaction to my job. So then I joined the Horizon SME Solution Engineer team. Got to work with customers directly, work with our sales team, but then I realized I wanted to take that sales hat off for a little bit. So now I'm on the Customer Success Specialist Engineer team. So I work with the top 500 EUC accounts and help them utilize what they've already purchased. So not trying to sell you anything new, get the most out of what you're already paying for kind of thing. But you'll find me in Atlanta or South Florida. I just kind of hop back and forth from between there. This is just kind of a special thank you to everybody that's helped put this together. So Bill, he's going to be working back there in the NOC. If you see him, say hi. Mark McGill, Vernon, our fearless leader, guys I was just talking to. And then somebody who's not up here with us, his name's Nathan Smith. He's done so much to put this and the 2451 lab together as well for the Horizon Enterprise section. So big shout out to those guys.
Yeah, that picture is not Gandalf, that's Bill. So.
it may be a little dated, but you'll still figure out who it is. So talking a little bit about the building blocks of Horizon Cloud on Azure. To really understand the building blocks of the Horizon Cloud Service, you need to understand that we partner very close with Microsoft Azure and Windows Virtual Desktop. So Windows Virtual Desktop is essentially just a conglomerate of storage, compute, networking, database, and security built on Microsoft Azure. Windows brought some features over to leverage those to leverage the storage and the compute. Windows 10, Windows 11 Enterprise, Windows 10, 11 Enterprise MultiSession. We'll highlight that a lot more because it's a very unique feature to Microsoft Azure. This is a little dated, Windows 7 with free SUs. I left it on there because it does two things. I think it speaks to the leverage that Microsoft has when it's working with its own products. So they offered Windows 7 all the way until January of this year, where you weren't able to support it. Supported Windows 7 wasn't ran for, I think, a year prior to that. And then also Windows Server can all be leveraged for Windows Virtual Desktop. The question I get a lot is, okay, what does that mean for Horizon Cloud? If I can already leverage those things for Windows Virtual Desktop, why would I use Horizon Cloud on Microsoft Azure? It's because the same features that are available on Windows Virtual Desktop, our partnership with Microsoft allows us to bring those features over to use on our platform, including the unique features such as Windows 10 and Windows 11 multi-session, as well as the benefits that they get for using their own products like Windows 7 with free ESUs through the beginning of this year. Windows Virtual Desktop comes out of the box with some what we kind of consider some of the basic features that we can use with Horizon Cloud on Azure as well. You see up here like RDP protocol. FS Logics is another great profiling container that can be used. But with Horizon Cloud on Azure, we get an entirely new set of features, AppVolume and DEM that can be used aside FS Logics, as well as Blast Extreme and PC Override protocol to use alongside VARDP. So we give the administrators the options to choose those additional features to run on Horizon Cloud and Azure as well. So just real quick before I hand things off over to John, I wanted to this is just a very high level of the architecture that we're going to be seeing that's kind of built on this lab. Very simplified, but we have one site that is deployed into Microsoft Azure, and in that one site we have a single virtual network. A single virtual network is divided up into 3 subnets. We have a tenant subnet, or what we call our desktop subnet, where we actually deploy the images and the desktop workloads. We have a DMZ subnet, which has our unified access gateways, and then we have a management subnet, which is used for the Horizon Edge Gateway, which is the brokering and the brains behind that communicates with the Universal Console, the Horizon Control Plane at the very top, and your Azure subscription.
Yeah, one thing you'll notice here, we're starting to use some Azure terms, right? VNets, that's definitely something you're probably not dealing with if you're in the on-prem world, but this is definitely core Azure that you're going to have to learn and figure out as you move into Horizon Cloud.
Yep, good call out there. So each cloud provider has a little bit different terminology for the pieces that they work with. Microsoft Azure calls them, there's VNet, where if you're working in AWS or GCP, it's called a VPC. Other thing I wanted to highlight is you'll see some of the icons that are listed up there in the control plane. So the control plane is now the brains and the management console that is used to deploy and manage everything that goes on in your Azure subscription. So, and we'll dive a lot more into this, but we're taking pieces of infrastructure out of the data center or out of your cloud subscription, and we're now delivering those as a service through the control plane. So you'll see up there we have AppVolumes, where if you're familiar with that with Horizon 8 and Horizon on-premise deployments, that's going to have an AppVolumes manager. That's not a piece of infrastructure that's required for Horizon Cloud and Azure.
All right, and I'm going to kind of continue on that introduction. So Colby did a good job of introducing what Horizon Cloud on Azure is, but the idea is that we can now also bring together on-premises and cloud into one platform for monitoring, management, and all that stuff. So we have image management, application management through AppVolumes, and monitoring all through the Horizon Cloud Service. And so some of the key features of this is, we can, when it's running in the cloud, we can kind of scale effortlessly. We don't have to worry about bringing in additional hardware to do that. We can optimize that resources so that we can kind of scale down, if you will, during your off-peak times, so you're not paying for those resources. And also, with Horizon Cloud on Azure, as Colby mentioned, with V2, we've kind of streamlined that architecture. In our original V1 type of deployment, we had these what we call smart nodes that were deployed in your Azure subscription, and you kind of had to pay for that in the database, and there was some cost to it. So with this streamlined architecture with Horizon Cloud V2, we've kind of rewritten that platform to be more cloud native.
Hey, John.
Yes.
So one of the things that was just called out is that this is labeled as 2451-02, and the lab that we actually are going to be following along with here is 2451-03.
Yeah, so hopefully as they sat you down, they got you logged in the 2451-03 lab. So just check that, make sure you're in the right lab. Otherwise, it's just going to be an interactive simulation for you. All right. So I'm just kind of, like I said, I'm just kind of going through some of the overview here. One of the nice things about Horizon Cloud on Azure is we've gone with an API first model, so we can do a lot better with third-party integrations. Like if you want to integrate with ServiceNow to spin up some of these desktops, we have APIs that will kind of, any function in the admin user interface is pretty much covered by API, because it's API first, and then we actually develop the feature from a UI perspective. So that also enables partner managed services, and like I said, custom integrations like ServiceNow. One of the nice things is because we're handling that brokering and all that stuff on the back end, we're responsible for managing and monitoring that, so we kind of take some of that burden off of you guys. And this kind of gives kind of an overview of what that all looks like. So in the Horizon Cloud control plane, all this stuff is kind of covered. The pod manager is what kind of covers the brokering, if you will. They're kind of like the connection servers, if you will. The database is a Postgres database that's used to tie that all together from a data perspective. We have the AppVolumes manager in there, Workspace ONE. The admin console is all running there, all your pools and entitlements, image management, and monitoring, all delivered through the control plane so you don't have to deal with it. And then below that, you just kind of entitle multi-session desktops and single session desktops. All that's available to you. And then the other thing that runs in your subscription still are these the unified access gateways and the edge gateway, which is what kind of brings your on-prem world into the cloud. And of course, we have that tie to Active Directory still. So I'm going to actually kind of step through what it looks like for you guys if you're going to go ahead and get started onboarding. Let me skip to this point where it shows the welcome email. So the first thing you see when you guys are going to onboard with Horizon Cloud on Azure after you've provided a PO to us, you're going to get this email that says log into Workspace ONE and Horizon Cloud. This is basically your subscription and how you redeem it. So you would click that Getting Started button, and you would click on that to get started with what we call the onboarding process. The next step would be, if you haven't already, you would have to create what we call a Cloud Service Portal organization. You can use one if you already have one, or you'll have the option to create one. And soon after that, your next option would be you'll get into, this is the actual Cloud Services portal. And if you have other services like other VMware services, they'll show up here as well. But if you're only subscribed to Horizon Cloud, you'll see this Workspace ONE tile, and that's how you'll get into your environment.
So one thing that I would like to highlight here is that all the processes that John's explaining so far are the same even if you are running a Horizon Enterprise on-premises and you need to gain subscription licensing. So you're going to do an edge deployment and you're going to be able to tie into that same VMware CSP to leverage some of the Horizon Cloud services that are available for Horizon 8 as well, which John's going to demonstrate a little bit later with the Daemon Intelligence.
So what I'm going to show you here is not a live environment. It is a simulation, but I did want to show you guys how the onboarding process kind of works. And so what we're going to do is, we did that invite and redeem that email. We've got access to the Workspace ONE environment, and we're just going to log in here and put in our password and click on Workspace ONE like I showed on the previous screen. And then you'll see these this set of tiles, and this is what you get with your Horizon Universal subscription. You will typically see a Workspace ONE Intelligence, a Workspace ONE Access, and a Horizon Cloud tile when you first log in. These other services that are there are kind of optional services that are available to you, but those three components are the three key components of Horizon Universal. So I clicked on the Horizon Cloud Universal. The first thing you notice, it's going to ask what region. So this is kind of a permanent thing. If you click on something wrong here, it's going to be living in that region forever. So make sure you select the right region. In this case, we're going to do United States. and click Save and Continue. So all the metadata and stuff that we collect about the configuration of the service is going to be stored in the US for data sovereignty laws. So this becomes more important in the UK and other in EMEA type environments. The next thing you'll see when you log in, and actually this will get a little bit simpler at the end of the month, is the bottom one is our Horizon V1 control plane. So you kind of want to stay away from that. You want to click on Horizon Next Gen control plane and confirm that. And that brings you to this kind of getting started page. And you're basically in Horizon Cloud on Azure at this point, but we just got to do some setup and get things going. So the first thing we're going to do here is click on the Horizon Cloud Service. And we need to register a domain, so we're going to just start with that process, and we're going to register the EUC space domain. And there's our DNS name. We're going to give it a default OU and a little bit of description. This demo was recorded by my buddy Vernon over there, who's from the UK, so you're going to see some references to UK over here. And then you of course need an Active Directory bind account to actually join the computers to the domain and be able to read the directory. And then we have an auxiliary account there just so that, if that bind account has a problem, you don't just fail out. Then we have the actual domain join account. This is the ones that's going to actually join the computers to the domain, and we have the same kind of redundancy there with multiple accounts. And that's it. Our domain registration is complete at that point. So then the next step would be that identity and access piece. So we're going to utilize, you can use Microsoft Azure Active Directory as an identity provider, but in our case, we're going to use Workspace ONE Access. And we're going to provide the tenant domain here. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for you. And you can see the Workspace ONE Access fully qualified domain URL. You'd actually configure that in that Workspace ONE Access tile I would show you earlier. We've already done those steps though. And we're going to head and kind of bind those together. You're going to get prompted for a Microsoft username and password to complete that process. And boom, we got our identity and access set up now too.
Even though that John chose Workspace ONE Access as identity provider, we've already, Workspace ONE is also using Microsoft Azure. That was the reason he had to log in with his Microsoft account.
Good point. All right, so then the final step there is that Horizon Edge we talked about. The Horizon Edge is important because it's what kind of brings everything together. So we're going to start that deployment, and we're going to give it a name, give it a little bit of description here. And then the provider name is going to be a provider in this context is either a Horizon Enterprise type environment that's got an edge attached to it, or a Horizon Cloud on Azure edge that we're getting ready to deploy. So this is going to be our first deployment. So we're just giving it a name of provider 5, I think that says it. I don't have my glasses on because the lights are bright. And then we got to have our Azure subscription ID. Then we have to give it our account type if we're a commercial or government type, and what region we want in Azure we want to deploy this into. Then we give it the directory ID, which would be your Azure Active Directory ID. And then you need to provide a service principal, which is basically for you Windows Enterprise or Horizon Enterprise guys, is basically like a service account but in Azure. So that's usually a very unique application ID, GUID, and a one-time use key.
Yeah, that service principal application registry, that is just going to provide access for the Horizon Cloud Service to deploy resources inside of Azure on behalf of you through the service.
Yeah, very similar to a service account. It's what provides access to Azure, as Kobe said. All right. And then you can add additional providers, but we're going to do that. We'll do that later. And then we got to select some networks. So we have a provider primary network. That's a VNet that we're going to deploy into. And we got to select these desktop, a DMZ, and a management subnet. And we're going to just kind of give the site a name of this site. In this case, it's going to be the London site. and it's going to be a data center that happens to be in South London. And then the connectivity type is kind of important. So in this case, we can either do a NAT gateway, or you have the option of providing your own routing. And we're going to select a virtual network, and then we need that management subnet we selected. There's a couple service CIDRs that you'll have to provide, and a pod CIDR for allocation of. This basically builds an AKS cluster for the edge, so it needs some additional network IP address space in order for it to work properly. So that's just what we're providing. This is all kind of spelled out in the checklist that we have on what you need to provide. And then we're going to give it the fully qualified domain name. And then the last step here is, this is determining if we want that traffic to go over an external network or internal Azure network, or sorry, this is for the UAG, and this is saying we're going to have the UAG available internally and externally. And here's our UAG fully qualified domain name. So if you're familiar with Horizon Enterprise, same concept. We need a UAG to kind of provide that secure remote access. You're going to have to provide a certificate to the UAG so that we can deploy it. And then you can see we can select a specific VM model, select the virtual networks that we're going to deploy that UAG to. And we're going to hit save. And it's going to kick off the deployment process in Azure to deploy the edge. And like I said, it's deploying an AKS cluster out there that's going to handle all these management functions for you and kind of bind your Active Directory to that edge so that we can read the Active Directory and get data from it. And from that point, you're in Horizon Cloud. You won't see that welcome screen anymore. You'll land on this page. So, and we can just double click on that Horizon Edge, and you can see it's in a pending state right now, or a creating state, and then at the end of that, it should show up as ready. And that's it for deploying an edge.
Any questions so far? Okay, I want to expand on one thing that I think was kind of, we talked a little bit about that application registration service principle that's used to link the Horizon Cloud Service in your Azure subscription. We had an option to add additional service principles. And you might be asking, well, why would you need more than one? It's because now a Horizon Edge spans more than one Azure subscription. So a single service principal will take care of about 2,000 VMs, but if you want to expand that, or if you want to deploy VMs in a quicker method, you can add additional service principals to make the deployment larger and faster.
So at this point, we're going to try to get you into what's called our test drive environment so that we can get you into a live environment and you can kind of at least kick the tires and look around the user interface a little bit. You will have read-only access, but the idea is we want to get you into what a live environment looks like. And so if you go to step 4 in your screen steps, it should have a unique logon for each of you. And I'll just kind of walk around. Colby, if you want to kind of talk them through it and see how they're going.
So whenever you go to this cloud.horizon.vmware URL, you can actually drag it over and copy it into the browser page and be able to launch it. And it's going to launch the VMware Cloud Services and Horizon Cloud. The reason that I get a proxy error is because I am using my personal account. I'm already logged in on my personal account on a different tab. But if you log in with this CSP username and CSP password, you should be able to get through.
The default web page is going to try to point you to a Skyline connector device. Just open up another tab and put that URL in there. And if you highlight that text where it says the username, I'll check with you in just a second. If you highlight that text where it says a username, you'll see a little hand pop up, and it's easy to drag that over.
But while everyone's still working on that, just at a very high level, these are the steps that we are about to cover that walk you through utilizing the desktop as a service concept as far as importing an image and actually going all the way through and entitling users. But we're going to walk through each one of these in the console, and we've made it very intuitive in the drop-down as well. So everything that you're going to do within the Universal Console essentially happens on the left-hand menu side, and is going to be in the Resource tab and Desktop and Application Catalog. We already went through adding capacity with John, and you can see that we have a couple of Horizon Edges deployed, one for Microsoft Azure and another for a Horizon 8 environment. The next step is going to be importing an image. You can see that we already have a number of images available to us in the catalog. Some are available to use and some are ready to publish. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But to actually add a new image into this catalog, we just click on Add. We give this a name, Expert-Led Workshop. And this is 2451-03. And we're going to assign a marker to this image. A marker identifies this image to a specific use case to a specific pool. So whenever you go to update a pool, you can use this marker to do so.
Can you make that higher resolution? Are you able to do that? Kick that, pull that cookie usage thing. Just small.
Where's wrong?
The resolution. Can you bring it up a little bit? Go ahead.
Yeah. So whenever you go to the next image source page, you're going to have three options here. You have the option to import an image through the Azure Marketplace. You have an option to import a published image from the Microsoft Azure Compute Gallery, and then you have a third option to import your own custom VM that's already present in Microsoft Azure. For the purposes of this demonstration, we're just going to import it directly from the Microsoft Azure Marketplace. This is the preferred method by VMware because you're importing a VM that has already been hardened and approved by Microsoft to use within Azure. On the images details section, you can see that some of this information is already filled in for us. It's going to ask us for where we plan on deploying this image. The site that we've already set up with John, the Horizon Edge that we already set up with John, as well as that provider. In the VM details, we have a list of operating systems that are available for kind of like out of the box, out of Microsoft Azure's Marketplace. And I'm going to choose Windows 11 Enterprise MultiSession 22H2. If you're not familiar with Windows Enterprise Multi-Session, you're probably not alone in that because it is very unique to Microsoft Azure. Think of RDSH or terminal services, but instead of delivering a Windows Server session, you're delivering a Windows 11 or Windows 10 session. Next is the generation type. You can see that this is only allowing me to select V2. That is because Windows 11 is built off of a 64-bit operating system, where if you were to select a Windows 10 or a Windows Server, you could then select V1 or V2. And I'm going to go back to multi-session. You have the option to deploy an image without GPU or with GPU. If you choose to do with GPU, it's going, well, either way actually, it's going to scan your Microsoft Azure subscription to let you know what quota you have available to use. I do not have 12 CPUs of GPU available to use within this subscription, so I can either change that size of VM that I want to deploy, or I can just decide to use without GPU. And same thing, I can choose my VM model that I want to select for the image, The default's fine. You have the option to enable a public IP. Usually not a best practice for an image, but it can be very useful because if you have a third party that is, provides updates or is providing that image for you, now you don't have to give them access to your Microsoft Azure subscription and a jump box to remote into. They can remote directly into this image. The virtual network that was set up with John earlier is already selected, and we choose which subnet that we want to deploy the image into. So I'm going to select the management subnet.
And just to reiterate, you can kind of do these steps, you just won't be able to save. So if you can just watch, or you can kind of follow along in there if you want to.
And this is a local, local admin credentials for the VM. And you'll notice here that we have a character limit. This is specific to Azure, so typically we use VMware 1 bang for everything, but for this we're using VMware 1 bang, VMware 1 bang. And you have to click the checkbox that says that I have licenses to do so, and you can click add. You won't actually be able to click add in the lab. We've prevented that, but in your own environment, or if we were setting up a POC or pilot for you guys, then we'd be able to do that in your Azure subscription. And you can see that the image is in process of being created. I already have some here that have been previously created and that are ready to publish. So if I actually click into these VMs, you can see that this has a marker that is established to it and a version that's attached. If I click the radio button, all I have to do is select publish from the unpublished dropdown. And then I get another screen asking me for some more information. So do I want to use this image and publish it out to a specific Horizon Edge or all Horizon Edges? Well, I only have one for Microsoft Azure, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to hit next. And in the properties panel, you're going to be prompted to, you have some toggles here that you can choose: optimize window image, remove Windows Store apps, remove custom script extensions, enable publish error recovery. I'm just going to leave that as is, hit next. This is a very unique feature to Horizon Cloud. So instead of building the image and installing the Horizon agent, we've automated that process for you. It's something that's required for a Horizon deployment, so why not do that for you? And so you'll see a list of Horizon agent features that are available for you here that you can toggle on or off. You can choose to toggle all on, which includes DEM and AppVolumes agent, as well as some of the very traditional Horizon agents, such as real-time audio video, USB URL redirection, those type of things. I'm going to leave them all toggled on and hit next. Scan remote applications. So this is more applicable to a multi-session, which this is a single session VM, and then validate publish image. This is actually going to create a snapshot of sorts of this image, then validate the agents that are installed on it, so if anything happens to that, you can roll it back. Then we'll click publish. You can see I get the same in progress status for publishing this image. And now I have the original one that's in the process of being created, and this one that is in the process of being published. Moving down the line over here on the far left, we can go into pools. And same as before, you'll see that we already have some pools that are built out. But what I want to do is add a new pool. And the pool type that I'm going to use is a multi-session. Same thing, it's going to ask me for the site, the Horizon Edge, and the provider. And if I want to build this machine, or if I want to build this pool off of a V1 or V2. You notice that whenever I had V1 selected, I have nothing available in the drop-downs because I do not have any multi-session V1s available. But if I just click the V2 radio button, now I have all of my V2 images available to me. So it brings over that exact same marker that we had before. And you'll see that we get some of the notifications up here as well, that the image that we imported is finished. Once again, we're confirming with Microsoft that we do have that licensing. You can add a Microsoft Azure tag to this pool. And so any VMs that's created from the image will be associated with this tag. Very helpful for charging specific departments based on pools and resources that are being used in Azure.
Yeah, I have a lab environment that we have all the SEs that have access to, and it gets very difficult to determine who has what VM if they're not tagged, so we kind of force a tag.
Yep. And 2 CPUs and 7 gigs of RAM doesn't seem like a whole lot to be shared out in a multi-session pool, so I'm going to up that a little bit. And you see you have the option to select disk type as well. I'm just going to type standard HDD, save VMware a little bit of money there. And option to encrypt disks. Next, you're going to ask for your domain and the OU that you want to deploy this pool to.
Yeah, it should be noted, there's a lot of customers are asking us if we want to be able to join machines to Azure Active Directory. We do require this regular Active Directory for the machine identity. So.
Yep, good call out there. Moving down the line, provisioning VMs. So you can actually choose to provision these on demand or all at once. So if you need the VMs now and to be available, you would choose all at once. If you're wanting them to build as they are needed, you would choose on demand. Minimum spare VMs that are running versus maximum spare VMs that are going to be running within this pool. We're going to choose that we want a maximum of 2. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have a pool with just 1 VM in it. And we'll have 2 that are available to use. And then sessions per VM. So if I wanted to apply 5 sessions per VM, that would be a max of 10 sessions across these 2 multi-session hosts. We're going to name the pool. And we're going to give the local admin credentials that we created before. Oh, so used to only typing in VMware one bang once. You have the option to choose an outbound proxy. We don't have one set up, so just next. And then as seen before, we got that virtual network and the available subnets that we want to deploy the pool into. We're going to choose that desktop network subnet. And this is a new feature for Horizon Cloud as well. So we now have the option to include the dynamic environment manager path that is used in our AD. So we have none selected here, but from the drop-down, we can add a new path, new configuration share path, and then you also have the option to choose dynamic environment manager in no AD mode. This, we're just going to choose none, save. I'm going to go ahead and hit finish here. What we typically do is we want to add this to a pool group. A pool group is I'm going to go over to that tab first. A pool group is a new idea to Horizon Cloud and Azure. And the idea is that you can have multiple pools, put them in a single group, and have a and apply policies to that group that would be across your entire pool. And the same with resources among one pool or resources are not restricted to one single pool, but across all the pools in that pool group. So we'll select a multi-session pool group. And you have the option to give it a display name. If you don't give it a display name, it's just going to use the actual name of the multi-session pool group for your end users to see. And you'll notice something unique here. You have the option to do a published desktop, published applications, or both. Because we're working with multi-session, I'm going to do both. And then we have the list of available images or available pools for us to use and choose upon. You'll see the one that I built out previously is still expanding, so I'm just going to choose one that was already built. And these are all the applications that are available on that pool. And so you can go through here and select, you can select all the application or select the ones that are only appropriate for this pool group and these end users to access. So, for example, I have no need for this group of users to have access to Internet Explorer. I prefer them to use Chrome or, while that expands, I think I have Edge on here as well. Yep, perfect. So next. And here's where I actually apply the policies for this entire pool group. From here, I've got default protocol policies. We're going to use Blast Extreme, of course, but I can choose between if I want them to have a preferred client, to use the preferred Horizon client or the browser. One of them will launch through the Horizon client. Next, we go into brokering. So we only have one site set up, but if I wanted to select it to, if I wanted to restrict this to only one site, we could do so, and then have it to their home site or nearest site, or we can have them connect from any site. True SSO, home site restriction, power management. So with power management, we have the option to set a schedule as well as the minimum and maximum VMs that are running that are part of that pool. So this is based on percent of the total pool. So if we wanted only, once it hit 80%, to then spin up the next host, we can do so. And then we can also add a schedule if we wanted to power down this at night. So I'll just name this real quick. And say we want to select a weekday. This pool should only be available for users throughout the week. And they are out of Eastern time zone, just like me. And we'll set it up for 8 o'clock through 5 o'clock. And this is the minimum VMs that I always want available as a percentage, and so I'll just say 20%. And then we can add a schedule. Load balancing policies as well. So this is going to say how much until we fall over to the next host that's available in these pools. So once CPU hit threshold, memory threshold hit 90%, we'll then be spinning up a new host for users to log on to. We have timeout handling policies as well. And again, these are going to be applied to all the pools in that pool group. Let's save. So I'm going to hit finish here because we're going to actually go to the next step. I like to show how it progresses, like starting at the top and working our way down. Go to desktop and application catalog. And as seen before, we've got some that are already provisioned here for us. But you see that we have desktops, public applications, as well as AppVolumes. And we can select any of these, and from the entitlement dropdown, we can hit entitle and select the users that we want to entitle. So you have the option to select users or user groups from this section. I don't think there's any sense in giving all of you access to the VMs that are already created, so I'm just going to hit save there. You can do the same thing with published applications that are available. And you'll see that we have a large list of public applications now that we added some from that pool group. So Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, those were things that we just added over from that last pool group that are now available for entitlement. See this pool group? And same thing from the drop down, just hit entitle. And assign this to self. And the last tab on this page is AppVolumes. As I mentioned previously, AppVolumes is available with Horizon Cloud as it's the same product that is available with Horizon 8. It's just delivered a little bit differently. We don't have an additional piece of infrastructure as a AppVolumes manager. All of the management capabilities are handled through this universal console.
The other big difference here is those AppVolumes will be delivered as VHDs instead of VMDKs because there's no vCenter available here.
Correct.
So that's the reason. The nice part is AppVolumes will work with both VMDK in Horizon Enterprise and VHD in Azure.
And you probably are aware that you can migrate a AppVolumes package from a VMDK to a VHD, and if you have done that, you can actually import it already. If you already have it in Azure, you can import it into this catalog as well. So you don't have to recreate those packages if you've already done them for Horizon Enterprise. You can just use the same ones here. But you'd start by adding an application. Just name this. And you're going to give it an owner. I'm going to give it myself. And then you can also choose to add a package at the same time. And choose the edge, the provider, and then select the image that's available for it as well. If you have multiple image versions, this is where you would select that here. Typically, you would have a different image version for your, or you would want to use the same image, I apologize, you want to use the same image version for your AppVolumes package that you're using for your desktop pools. The reason behind that is if it changes too much, it's going to grab whatever changes that are available and it's going to try to package those up. So if you've changed versions or anything like that, it's in your golden image, then it's going to pull those changes. And you want the AppVolumes capture machine to be as close to the golden image as possible. Packaging, same as the owner. And then you have the option to deliver this in what we call classic mode or on demand. This is a new feature to AppVolumes 4 to deliver apps on demand. So in the past, we have had applications delivered at logon. With apps on demand, we're only actually delivering the shortcut and the icon, and then once it's clicked on, that's when the application actually gets attached to the VM. And it's important to note that it's not being layered on top of the pool, it's actually a merger of the pool with the AppVolumes VHD. And there's a number of benefits here. Essentially, you can add multiple packages and multiple applications at any time, where in previous versions that was limited. Another big advantage is logon time. Now that we're not attaching those at logon and we're attaching those on demand when the user clicks on them, login time improves significantly. save there. And I think there was one slide that I really kind of wanted to highlight, or there were a couple slides that I probably should have been highlighting while I went through this. And so to give you a good idea and understanding of AppVolumes, if you haven't been using it in your Horizon Enterprise or Horizon 8 deployment, is that the there are essentially three parts that come with AppVolumes, and one of them is a standalone feature, and that's DEM, Dynamic Environment Manager. But we can use the application settings and apply those to the individual VMs, as well, and then AppVolumes, we're taking the applications, packaging them together, and delivering them on top of a clean, simplified golden image. This reduces the amount of images that we need to have in the environment, and we can deliver unique experiences to a larger group of end users. And again, I know it kind of shows here AppVolumes agent on top of the OS, and then the apps above that. But this isn't really a layering method such as like Unidesk and some of those other features, but it really is a merger between the two, and that's the reason that we're able to deliver those on demand and not just in logon.
Hey, do we want to have them log into the desktop and see?
Yeah, that'd be great.
See that live?
Yep.
So on that same manual page, if you scroll down, there's an additional logon.
So if you go to this URL, drag that and drop it in there. You're going to be prompted for the company domain, and the company domain is test drive. I've written it over there on the whiteboard, and it's also available in the lab manual. Of course.
Log in with the student.
Yeah.
Just click on the login. No.
Perfect. All right, and your username and password is going to be DSC user, followed by the numbers that are available on your workstation. And those can be found from this image. And you'll be able to see whenever you get this to load that all of the applications and desktops that are available for the end users that we've already set up, and I'll go back and show that in the lab as well, are available in a catalog for your end users to launch. And I'm going to launch the RDS session. Wait for it to load. Back in the lab, in the very top in the search, you should be able to search for your individual user. And see the session that's available and that's connected. You can see that I have reconnected, and that is true. I can dive in here a little bit and see what's being presented to this end user. So I know this is a Windows Server 2019 Gen 2 VM. It's being delivered as a desktop. So obviously an RDSH image. And this will take a little bit of time to load, but it'll be able to see the CPU and memory usage that's available, that is being consumed at this desktop as well. And you can see that some of this information is starting to come in as far as the IP address goes, the protocol that's being utilized. But I also want to be able to hand it back over to John here in just a second and have him walk you through additional telemetry that you can pull through the integrations of intelligence and Deem as well. But in the meantime, does anybody have any questions about the walkthrough or anything that was shown here?
Yeah, we had a couple issues with the proxy over there. We just kind of worked around it by going to the the regular browser outside the lab, and that it's a live environment, so that works. If you have any problems, if you see that proxy issue. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we manage and monitor this stuff. And with Horizon Enterprise or Horizon Universal licensing or a subscription licensing, you do get intelligence for Horizon. So I wanted to kind of show how that works. Now, all these dashboards and stuff you see here are actually come from intelligence. So all this connected sessions, disconnected sessions, all that data is a feed from intelligence. And what is kind of cool about this is if you go over to intelligence, I'm going to go back up here. Actually, go back up to Cloud Services Console. And then go back into Launch Service. And you can see over here, we have Workspace ONE Intelligence as a tile. You can actually click there to do it, and it's also available under, actually I do have to do it here. I'm going to go to Dashboards. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, if you go here over here under Apps and Desktop Virtualization, you see Horizon Cloud Next Gen. That's basically our monitoring dashboard. You can see we have one site there. We have 2 edges deployed and 34 pools. This is a kind of an overview of what's going on in the test drive environment right now. And you can see we have a total of 15 sessions there, 5 active sessions, 14 total users, and 2 impacted users. I'm going to dig into an active user here real quick and kind of show you some of the data that we're collecting about these users. We're seeing a few of you guys that have logged in here, plus a few others. You can see that the time that they logged in, their pool name, the pool type, the desktop name. Then we also start gathering some logon duration information to help you troubleshoot any kind of logon issues. We can break it down by shell load time, profile load time, interactive time. We're pulling in the client IP address information. The type of client is here, even if it's a Mac or it'll do Chrome, iOS. We have protocol latency information, protocol packet loss, and then of course the provider type and the type of edge it came from. And also I like to show here, there's a ton of other metrics here that we're collecting through that Horizon Edge from the desktop agents. So potentially, we'll see if it shows any here. Just with a Horizon agent, a Horizon client, and the Horizon Edge correctly deployed, you can actually collect Wi-Fi information about the endpoints. So if you have a user that's logging in from Starbucks, unfortunately, none of those are shown here, but because it's got to be, it's obviously just showing you guys right now. Actually, let me show this a slightly different way, and it may show it. Let me go to Total Sessions, and then edit that column and add Wi-Fi information here. But you can see we're gathering Wi-Fi signal strength, the network identifier, and the total signal strength. Add, save. And you can see there was some Wi-Fi signal strength that was coming through, but there's just not enough data here in this particular environment right now to show that. But on Windows clients, Mac clients, you will get this network identifier, and so you could potentially see they're coming from Starbucks and they got a high packet loss, or they're coming from an offshore network and it's got poor performance. You're going to see that here now, not only in protocol packet loss, but also potentially if they're on Wi-Fi with that signal strength. So that's, and then we've got these additional dashboards down here. We've got session dashboards, total number of multi-session versus single session desktops, number of desktop sessions over time. And if I drill into that one, I can actually scroll down here to this one. I can kind of go back in time and see what was going on. And by default, it's showing you the last 24 hours. But I can click here and I kind of get a trend line of the last 14 days of what's going on. Additional data we've got here is what's coming from a particular edge. So this would be our Horizon on-prem edge that's got 6 sessions and our Azure edge that's got 7 sessions. And then this breaks it down by client type to kind of give you that data on what type of clients are connecting. And then the other thing I wanted to show you is the logon duration. And that's so that's Horizon Cloud on our intelligence for Horizon. That's included with your Horizon Universal license. That will work with Azure type desktops and your on-prem desktops if you deploy the Horizon Edge, which for a subscription license, it's required to deploy a Horizon Edge because that's how you get your licensing. But DIM is an add-on to that. And if you click on Experience Score, so DIM is available for physical desktops, and recently it became available for virtual desktops as well, kind of giving you an overall organization view. So if I click on virtual desktops, I can see the organization score for my entire organization, and in this case it is showing poor. And what this is showing is it's a kind of a summary of the lower level metrics and kind of rolling it up so it gives you a high level view, more for like a management view and things like that. But you can see it breaks it down into 4-hour chunks. And then total active users is 17 over the last 4 hours, and you can see what their state was. Was it a poor performing user or a good performing user? Down here in the next section, we've got the logon experience score, the network protocol score, and VM performance score. So we're going to look at network logon duration, and you can see here we're breaking it down by 10-hour, by 4-hour chunks, and you can see, oh, this one user had poor performance. I can drill into that. It should. Let me do it this way. And I can see that that particular user had poor performance, and it's because I doubt that this is right, but it says their their logon duration was what's that? Like the beginning of time. So that would constitute very poor performance. Gotta love live demos. So the next section is our network protocol performance. And you can see we break that down by poor score, neutral score, and good score. We do have Wi-Fi signal strength data here. So let's click in that one. And let's look at what this guy here is considered a neutral score. And here you can see we do have some Wi-Fi signal strengths that were showing poor in the last few hours. We had a little bit of high protocol latency. And then that's the main thing, and that was all coming from a Mac client in this particular case that was on a wireless network. The next section that we have here is the VM performance. So these are all the typical VM performance metrics. We got our CPU utilization, our memory utilization score, our disk latency score, and you can see here what's really driving some of these poor performance indicators is disk IOPS. So let's dig into that a little bit, and let's see these 28 users that were having poor performance. It's actually 11 users. And you can see that these users were having poor performance. My scroll bar is missing there. Let me see if I can get rid of this. they were having poor performance because of IOPS. So anything over 100 IOPS is, or under, let's see what the threshold actually is here instead of just guessing. Go back here to dashboard and click on thresholds. So you can see here, these are all the thresholds. So anything good was 0 to 50, neutral was 50 to 100, and poor was anything over 100. And you can see we have a tunable thresholds for all these other metrics. So if you wanted to tune this metric specific to your environment, you just come in here, make those adjustments, and some of those alerts would go away if it was appropriate for your environment. But these are all the metrics we can modify and track right now. We are always adding to the product. So let me see if I have one more view here. I'm going to experience. Yeah, we have logon duration by phase. And you can see here, we break things down by logon duration, GPO load time, profile load time, shell load time, logon script, and other. So that's kind of giving an overview of what Deem can do for you. Like I said, that one is an add-on, but you do get the Workspace ONE intelligence for Horizon with your Horizon Universal subscription. So with that, Colby, you got anything else you want to add?
No, I think you covered it very well.
Any questions at this time? Okay. All right, I think that's...
Got one over here.
Okay.
We currently have the first gen cloud connector. How do you recommend we move towards the next gen?
Great question. So right now we're in the process of migrating. It starts a little bit on our back end. So we have to migrate your SID, your licensing SID, over to a next gen tenant. Once that next gen tenant is available, we can send a welcome email that John went over in the very first part, and then you would essentially deploy the Horizon Edge very similarly to how you did the Horizon Cloud Connector, and that would link to that console for your licensing.
Yeah, I think I can actually show that right here. So if here's where you would deploy the Edge. You come into the Horizon Next Gen console, you'd select Horizon 8, and that's where you would actually start the process for deploying a Horizon on-prem Edge right there to replace that cloud connector.
Yeah, and if you're ready to start this process and your SID hasn't been migrated yet, you can put in an SR to kind of bump yourself to the front of the line, and then you can get started on this. Because, yeah, as you know, I think the V1 console is being deprecated, and we set a date for, there's a KB out there that is October 31st, and then end of life is going to be January 31st. So we need to migrate by then.
And we tried to make some improvements in the deployability and ease of deployment of the Horizon Edge gateway. So it's a little bit easier process. It's all wizard driven. The only thing you have to do is point it to the OVA, give it the prerequisites as part of the wizard for setup, and it will go out and deploy that appliance.
Hi, if we want to use Microsoft Authenticator as the MFA method, how would we configure that in Workspace ONE? Or would that be a different way of configuring it?
Nope. You want to take that? So you can do it through Workspace ONE, and then that integration can happen with the Horizon with Horizon Cloud. But it is not, Microsoft Authenticator is not going to be one of the IDPs that we walked through earlier. If you're wanting to use it for your end users only for access, yeah, then we can integrate that into Workspace ONE as an identity provider, or as an identity manager, sorry, or through our identity manager, apologies.
Yeah, so it definitely can be integrated with Workspace ONE Access. And that's kind of, we're using Workspace ONE Access as the glue to bring in those other multi-factor authentication, so that's kind of how we're doing it. It would be another provider in Workspace ONE Access, and that's how how that would kind of integrate.
Yeah, but from there, essentially, your end user is going to hit Workspace ONE, and then that's going to pass a SAML authentication over to your Microsoft Authenticator. The user would be prompted for a login if that's what you so choose, and then that would pass them into the catalog to their desktop. Yeah.
Yeah,
We can dive deeper in that. Go on.
Yeah, no, just to be clear. So you can use Authenticator for role-based access, but you have to federate the CSP, right? So if your CSP org is federated, you can use Authenticator, you can use Okta, you can use AAD directly. But with a native login, there is no Authenticator integration.
Thanks, Vernon.
Any other questions? If not, Colby and I will be around here after the session, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it, everybody. Thanks so much.